Dear students, in this video we will learn about the extra embryonic membranes in chick. Um, and this diagram tells you the formation, or it shows you the presence of these fetal membranes that are formed during the course of development of a chick embryo. And in this class we will learn about how these structures are formed and what are their functions. I am Dr. Lata, Assistant Professor, Department of Zoology, Maharani Science College for Women, Bengaluru. Now let us understand what these extra embryonic membranes are. During the development of chick and other vertebrates, certain specialized embryonic tissues or structures are produced in order to serve the requirements of the embryo with respect to nutrition, gas exchange, removal or storage of excretory wastes, and in protecting the developing embryo. And these structures or tissues are collectively termed as extra embryonic membranes or fetal membranes. Now in case of chick, there are four extra embryonic membranes. One is the yolk sac, the amnion, the chorion and allantois. So these are the four main extra embryonic membranes or the fetal membranes that you find in chick. And today we will learn in detail about their formation and their function. Now how actually this formation of extra embryonic membranes takes place, from where does it start? After the neural tube formation occurs in chick, the lateral plate mesoderm that is formed, that splits into two, the outer somatic layer of mesoderm and the inner splanchnic layer of mesoderm, and because of this splitting it encloses a space which is called as a coelomic space. It encloses a coelom when it splits into two. So this is a coelomic cavity that is formed by splitting of the lateral plate mesoderm. Now this somatic layer of mesoderm and the ectoderm is collectively called as somatopleur, and while the splanchnic layer of mesoderm along with the endoderm, it forms the splanchnopleur. Now during the development of this chick embryo, both the somatopleur and the splanchnopleur, they gradually spread peripherally over the yolk mass and helps or assist in the developing embryo. Now this diagram clearly shows you how this splitting of lateral plate mesoderm takes place, and here you will clearly understand what is a somatopleur and a splanchnopleur. Now as I said, here if you see, when there is a splitting of mesoderm, now this is the lateral plate mesoderm and here it's splitting into two, here one and here one. This dotted line represents the lateral plate mesoderm. Now here if you see, this is the ectoderm, and this dotted line towards the ectoderm is the somatic layer of mesoderm. Now these two together, see here these two together, which is the ectoderm and the somatic layer of mesoderm, it's together called as embryonic somatopleur. Whereas on the other side if you see, here this is the endoderm. The thick line that is there here surrounding the yolk mass is the endoderm, and this dotted line towards the endoderm is the splanchnic layer of mesoderm. Now these two together will form extra embryonic splanchnopleur. So here when this lateral plate mesoderm splits into two like this is the extra embryonic coelom that it forms. Okay, so here the extra ectoderm and the somatic layer of mesoderm forms the extra embryonic somatopleur, whereas the endoderm and the splanchnic layer of mesoderm, that together forms the extraembryonic splanchnopleure. It is from these two layers that all four fetal membranes are derived, and they enclose the embryo and they assist in the formation of further development of the embryo. Now let us learn one by one in detail how these fetal membranes are formed, and the first one to start with is yolk sac, because it is this yolk sac is the first embryonic membrane to be formed, and this as this early blastoderm expands, that is when the development of the embryo starts, this extraembryonic splanchnopleure, what is a splanchnopleure? Endoderm and splanchnic layer of mesoderm. They continues to spread over the egg mass and eventually encloses the egg yolk completely to form the yolk sac. Now here you have to focus on this layer which is surrounding the yolk, complete layer of yolk. Now what does this layer made up of? It is made up of this, it is a splanchnopleure layer. What is a splanchnopleure? It is a combination of endoderm and the splanchnic layer of mesoderm. Okay, so here if you observe, this is completely, this is covering the embryo completely. Okay, now this our extra embryonic splanchnopleure will come cover the yolk completely, whereas the intraembryonic splanchnopleure, that is the one which is inside and which forms the gut. Here you should look, this part of the intraembryonic splanchnopleure is subjected to superficial body folds which serve to establish a walled digestive tract or the gut in the body of the embryo. Okay, the middle of the gut, if you observe here, this middle portion of the gut is in contact, or it is in continuous with the yolk sac by a narrow stalk called as yolk stalk. Now this region is what is called as a yolk stalk. Okay, now which is an yolk stalk here? This portion or this region where the gut region is in contact with the just a second, this region which is in contact with the yolk sac and the midgut region, this narrow passage is what is called as an yolk stalk. But though the gut is in direct contact with the yolk sac through this yolk stalk, the nutrients are not directly supplied to the gut. Rather, this yolk that is there will get digested with the help of appropriate enzymes, and then it is supplied to the developing embryo. Now once this yolk sac develops, it also establishes the circulation in the yolk sac with the help of one major vein and artery, and they are called as ophalomesenteric veins, which join with the unpaired ductus venosus, which in turn enter the sinus venosus of the heart, and then the arteries, the right and the left ophalomesenteric arteries, which branch off from the dorsal aorta. Now, at about the middle of second day of incubation, the heart of the embryo begins to beat, and between this 38th to 40th hours of incubation, the blood starts circulating through the network of yolk sac. That is because through this ophalomesenteric arteries and veins. So the blood vessels in the area vasculosa, it penetrate deep into the yolk, and the endodermal surface of this yolk sac is thrown into folds to penetrate the yolk mass called as yolk septa. Like if you have the yolk sac like this, here you get the formation of folds like this, which are called as the yolk septum. And through the action of appropriate digestive enzymes secreted by the endodermal cells, the yolk gets digested and it is made available by the endodermal lining of the yolk sac. Then it is then passed on through this into the circulating blood, and from there which is carried to all different parts of the embryo. So this is how the yolk sac formation takes place. Circulation sets in and it helps in the process of digestion and nourishing the embryo. Now, what are the functions of the yolk sac? The yolk sac, it spreads over large amount of yolk and it serves as digestive and absorptive organ by which the yolk is made available for the growing embryo. It functions as the first respiratory organ. Initially it acts as a respiratory organ, then it is taken over by the other membrane called as chorion. And it also acts as hemopoietic organ like a liver, wherein it aids in the production of blood cells. It helps in the production of blood cells. So these are the three different functions of yolk sac. But out of this, for 1 mark, if you are asked to write the function of yolk sac, the major function is digestive and absorptive. It acts as a digestive and absorptive organ. So you should write that the main function of yolk sac is either nourishment or nourishing the developing embryo, or it serves as a digestive and absorptive organ. This should be your answer. In addition to this, it also acts as a respiratory organ initially, and it also acts as hemopoietic organ. This is with respect to yolk sac. I hope you are all clear with this. Moving on, let us learn how this amnion and chorion are formed. Now, why we are discussing it together is because both of these layers, both amnion and chorion, are formed in the similar way and simultaneously also. So they go hand in hand. The amnion and chorion, they are developed simultaneously from the extra embryonic somatopleur. What is somatopleur? It is ectoderm and the somatic layer of mesoderm that together forms somatopleur. Outer layer is ectoderm and here the somatic layer of mesoderm is towards its inner side. So these two together form somatopleur. At about the 30th hour of incubation, the head of the embryo sinks somewhat into the yolk, and at that time this extra embryonic somatopleur is elevated over the embryo by a folding process which is called as doubling of somatopleur. Now in the diagram, if you observe, here you can see the amnion and the this is the somatopleur. It pushes itself over the head developing embryo and it folds upon itself. See, it is folding upon itself, resulting in, this is folding upon itself resulting in double layer, and hence results in the formation of amnion and chorion. The initial elevation is over the head end of the embryo, producing a double somatopleur hood called the cephalic amniotic fold. I'll go little slow. Here I said the somatopleur will fold upon itself, forming double layer, and the first one that is formed is the head fold or the cephalic amniotic fold. Now that is this. Here you should focus on this region of the developing embryo. Here is the embryo that is developing. This is the developing embryo, and okay, that is the developing embryo, and here is the fold of the amnion towards the head, which we call it as cephalic amniotic fold or head fold of amnion. Now as the embryo increases in length, its grows forward into the amniotic fold. The same thing happens at the lateral side and also towards the tail end. So towards the tail end, Now what happens, the head is growing towards the head fold, and the cephalic amniotic fold gradually extends backwards. As it grows, it extends backwards towards the tail region, and its caudally extending side limbs are called lateral amniotic fold, which you cannot make out in the diagram because they are the lateral folds that happens. And then the one which occurs towards the tail region, this is called tail fold of amnion or caudal amniotic fold. Okay, so when these somatopleure extends over the developing embryo, forming a double layer towards the head, the fold that is formed towards the head, we call it as cephalic amniotic fold or the head fold of amnion. Towards the tail, it is the tail fold of amnion. And when this extends, the folds that are formed on the lateral side is called as lateral amniotic folds. Okay, so in this diagram again you can clearly make out which is a extra that is the splanchnic mesoderm, the somatic mesoderm, the ectoderm and the endoderm, and also the extra embryonic coelom, and this is how the folds of amnions are formed. I hope you are clear with this. Next, when all these amniotic folds, when we say all these, which are those? The head fold, the lateral folds and the tail fold or the caudal fold of the amnion, when they all finally converge at the midline, they form a thick region, or they form a little bit thick fold of these layer, because all layers are meeting at one point, and this point is called as seroamniotic connection or the amniotic fluid, the amniotic raphe. Okay, when all these amniotic folds meet, it is called seroamniotic connection or the amniotic raphe. Now what is an amniotic raphe? It is a place where all these amniotic folds, cephalic fold, the lateral fold and the tail fold, they all converge at this point, forming a scar-like thickening, and which is called as amniotic raphe. Now this seroamniotic connection or the amniotic raphe, this opens before the hatching. This opens before the hatching, and this opens before the hatching of the embryo and admits albumin into the amniotic cavity. Here you can see in the diagram D how the albumin is entering inside this amniotic cavity. And in seroamniotic raphe also can be seen in diagram C. So the fusion of all these amniotic folds result in the formation of two sac-like membranes and two cavities. The inner somatopleure membrane, which becomes the amnion, okay, and the outer one becomes the chorion, which is also referred as serosa. Now I hope you understand how these two layers were formed. How these two layers were formed? Because of doubling of that somatopleure layer. Okay, when this happened, it resulted in two sac-like membranes and two cavities. The inner somatopleure membrane becomes the amnion and the outer one becomes the chorion. The cavity between the amnion and the embryo is called as amniotic cavity, and it is lined by ectoderm. So if you observe the diagrams correctly with full focus, you will be clearly able to make out this amnion and the chorion, and that will make your understanding better. Now what are the functions of amnion? This amnion serves as a protective organ where the embryo is saved from the danger of desiccation. How it saves from desiccation? This amnion is filled with a fluid called as amniotic fluid, and that in turns acts as a shock absorber and also prevents this embryo from danger of desiccation. and it is also protects the embryo from any kind of mechanical shocks. And this, as this amnion, it isolates the embryo from the eggshell. It does protect it from adhesion to the shell or from friction against it. And the mesodermal of the amnion, during later stages of development, it form muscle cells which contract rhythmically, thus rocking the embryo within the amniotic fluid. This rocking prevents the adhesion of amnion to different embryonic membranes, and it also helps in preventing the stagnation of blood in the blood vessels, a condition which might tend to occur on account of pressure from growing organs. Okay, that is how, this is how the amnion protects this developing embryo. The main function of amnion is it acts as a protective organ wherein it prevents the embryo from desiccation, and it acts as a shock absorber. It prevents from any mechanical shocks. Okay, the others are the additional functions. And it also helps in the absorption of albumin that is there in the egg during later stages of development. Now chorion, it acts as an organ of respiration, and it lies in association with allantois, the next embryonic membrane that we are going to discuss. And since it gets closely associated with allantois, it forms a chorioallantoic membrane. The main function of this is respiration. So yolk sac, it helps in nutrition, supplying nutrition to the embryo. It aids in the digestive and the absorptive process. Amnion, it acts as a protective organ. It prevents embryo from desiccation. It prevents embryo from mechanical shocks. Chorion, the main fetal membrane that helps or that that acts as an organ of respiration. And then allantois we will learn now. So moving on, the last fetal membrane is the allantois, and let us understand how these allantois is formed. Here in the diagram you can make out the yolk sac is already there, amnion and chorion is formed, amniotic cavity is filled with amniotic fluid, and the embryo is developing. And this is the diagram on the 9th day of development, and then allantois is also being formed. Now this allantois, it appears on the 3rd day of incubation, and it bulges out as ventral outgrowths consisting of an inner layer of endoderm and an outer layer of splanchnic mesoderm. I hope you understand this. So these two layers together, which two layers? Endoderm and the outer layer of splanchnic mesoderm. Endoderm was towards the yolk sac, and the lateral plate mesoderm that was split into two, the mesoderm was towards the outside of the endoderm. That's why we are calling it as outer layer of splanchnic mesoderm. Don't get confused. So here these two together will form the splanchnopleur. Okay, so this is allantois is derived from the splanchnopleur. It enlarges rapidly from 4th day to the 10th day of incubation. It penetrates into the extra embryonic coelom, or into the space between the yolk sac, the amnion and the chorion. The base of this allantois remains connected with the hindgut of the embryo by means of a narrow stalk called as amniotic stalk, whereas the midgut was in connection with the yolk sac with the help of yolk stalk, whereas this one allantois, it remains in continuation with the hindgut with the help of an allantoic stalk. So this allantoic stalk and the stalk of the yolk sac remain closed and remain enclosed together, forming an umbilical cord. Now this mesodermal layer of allantois and the chorion, they fuse together to form a composite layer called chorioallantoic membrane that helps in respiratory process or the process of respiration. Later, This sac they progressively envelops the albumin and becomes a sac filled with albumin called as albumin sac that helps in the absorption of water and albumin, and that's how this allantois is formed. And the kind of allantoic circulation also sets in with the help of different blood vessels supplying to this allantoic cavity, and this allantoic circulation functions till the hatching of the chick is done and when it starts breathing the surrounding air. The umbilical vessels it then closes and the allantois dries up and separates from the body of the young one once it is hatched. So this diagram shows you the complete formation of allantois, chorioallantoic membrane, the yolk sac, amniotic cavity and chorion. Then what are the functions of allantois? Allantois acts as a reservoir for the excretory waste coming from the developing excretory organs, and as you know this remains in continuation with the hindgut, so obviously it serves as a function for excretory organs. The chorioallantoic membrane acts as a respiratory surface for the embryo, and it also makes the egg shell thin for easy rupture during hatching, and also it supplies required calcium for the bone formation in the embryo. Now both these function, that is making the shell thin and supplying calcium for the bone formation, both are performed simultaneously by the absorption of the calcium of the eggshell by these allantoic blood vessel. They take calcium from the shell and give it to the developing embryo for its development of the bones, and that's how the bones of the chick embryo gets calcified and well developed. So these are the functions of allantois. Out of this, for 1 mark, if they ask you the main function of allantois, main function is it acts as a storage for these excretory wastes of the developing embryo. In addition, it along with chorion, it helps in respiration and it makes the shell thin, which helps during the process of hatching, and it also supplies the required calcium for the bone formation of the embryo. So these are the function of allantois. Now this is a diagrammatic representation showing how these extra embryonic formation takes place at the early life, the later stage and the fully formed matured stage of extra embryonic membranes. You can practice these 3 diagrams and you can learn how the formation of these formation of these fetal membranes have taken place and how they complete the process of development. For your exam also, if they ask you to write a neat label diagram of chick showing extra embryonic membranes, this diagram B or A with completely fully labeled diagrams will do. So you have to learn all these 3 diagrams. At least A and B should be compulsory. This you have to practice. This gives you a complete view of the development of extra embryonic membranes. Now what is the significance of these membranes? These membranes, the fetal membranes like the yolk sac, the amnion, the chorion and the allantois, they can be regarded as an adaptation for the egg and the embryo to carry on its development on dry land. We know that these eggs, shelled eggs, they are laid on the land when these animals they were forced to move from aquatic environments into the terrestrial environments. When they invaded the terrestrial environments, laying this shelled egg was a major adaptation for its better chances of survival, wherein the embryos were protected fully and were nourished till their growth. So this acts as an adaptation for the egg and the embryo to carry on its development on dry land without any kind of major adverse effect of the environments and also from the threat of the predators. So this is the significance of these membranes. I hope you have understood the concept of these extraembryonic membranes, how they are formed and what are their functions. So these are the books that were referred and websites from which the pictures were taken. You can go back and refer to the book for more information. And few MCQs are given here, like which of the following are extraembryonic membranes in chick? Yolk sac, amnion, allantois, all the above. Obviously your choice will be all the above because all of them serves as fetal membranes. The main function of yolk sac is it acts as shock absorber, excretion, production of blood cells, or none of the above. Now which one will be your answer? We said it acts as a hemopoietic organ. Since nutrition and digestion is not mentioned here, obviously you will pick the production of blood cells. Then the main function of allantois, it is excretion. And the main functions of amnion prevents desiccation of embryo, absorption of albumin, prevent embryo from mechanical shock, and all the above. The answer is all the above. Then splanchnopleur is a combination of ectoderm and endoderm, ectoderm and somatic layer of mesoderm, endoderm and splanchnic layer of mesoderm, and none of the above. Your answer should be endoderm plus splanchnic layer of mesoderm, that forms the splanchnopleur, whereas the ectoderm and the somatic layer of mesoderm forms the somatopleur. So thank you for listening. I hope you have understood this clearly. Further, if you have any questions or any queries, you can mail me at this given mail ID. Thank you.